Okay, this thing started out small. It was supposed to be a small project. I saw a 3.75 diorama that had a little bit of sandcrawler in it, and I thought, oh, that looks kind of cool. A bit of a backdrop, and I thought, I wonder if there's something for the 112, and that started this process, and it got more complex, and it got bigger, and it got bigger. So in a minute we're going to jump not to the painting cupboard because I immediately outgrew it, like Incredible Hulk busting out of his own pants. I start off on the floor, I graduate to the kitchen table. Thank you to my wife for that, for allowing that to happen for several days, and then we get out into the garden at some point. We move around, so the filming changes a bit, and it's a little bit haphazard compared to some of the other videos. So I apologise for that. I did the best I could. I hope you like it. I feel a bit like Kevin Costner at the end of making Waterworld. I've given it my all. Hopefully, unlike Waterworld, you'll think it's worthwhile. Sorry, Kevin. We all love Waterworld. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let's see how this thing happened and where we ended up. So here we go. I found the print, the 3D print. It's a very cool print. I put the link to it, and it was only like £9. So I thought that was brilliant. That'll do me. And I printed it out, intending to print just some of it on my 3D printer, so a couple of pieces. I didn't print the full depth because I wanted to use it more like a backdrop, but I got carried away and I printed the whole damn track. So you see it here already. It's massive. And then I thought, rather than just having one track, which is a bit weird, why don't I use either end of the track and have the middle? Because that's where most of the scene sort of takes place. So then I thought, yeah, position like this, that's nice, isn't it? But then I realized I'm missing that middle piece, and it's not in the print file because it's just the track. So I took a look at this Onshape program, which I highly recommend. You can kind of teach yourself, well, with a couple of tutorials. So there's lots of great tutorials. So I designed and then printed out this middle section of the ladder of the sandcrawler. I glued it together using the glue I like to use most when I'm sticking my fingers to myself, the Loctite, and then filled in the gaps using this perfect putty, which is actually really easy. It dries really smooth and fine. You can just rub it down. I didn't have to do any sanding. You can just sort of rub it before it dries. I didn't do a great job, so I had to go back and do a little bit more later, but not the fault of the putty. I really recommend it. It was great to work with. So just sort of blending all the lines in. But then I noticed from this reference point, so these guys built the full scale track, which is now at OB1 Ranch, I think. But they've got these, the tracks are slightly different, so they're a bit closer together than on the treads that I've got. And also they've got like these triangle bits. So I started to think, oh, maybe I can, with some tape maybe, and if I build these, so I designed these little things, and I'll put these for free, by the way, the things I've designed, if anyone wants to print them out. So I printed out all these things. Here we are in the 3D printing cupboard. My wife has contained me to cupboards around the house. That's the situation we've got here. And then sticking on those tracks. And you remember I printed out this piece. Well, look, it was too big because now it wouldn't fit on any of the shelves I have available. So I then had to scale it down in the printer. So I didn't redesign it. I just scaled it down and made a smaller version. I then made a wheel for the wheels. And just so I could mark up where the holes would be, 8 holes, each wheel, drilled them out just to give a bit more depth to the print. Obviously you can't, when you're printing, it's complicated to put loads of stuff in it. Yes, the more eagle eye view will notice that is gemstones there, stick-on gemstones. I'll come to those in a minute. But I had some tubing and some bits, and I know this isn't screen accurate, but I wanted to sort of dress it up and make it look a little bit more found, a bit steampunky. So I also printed out some cogs to go in the gaps there, you see, and they were just a free 3D print. I put some filament there. The circles are actually just the bases of some tree supports, so it was a misprint, my fault, not the printers, and I used those. And then I decided this thing needs to be deeper, so I went back and printed some extra depth. We're going to stick those on in a minute. You can see me now messing about with gemstones because I figured if I put them on, once they were sprayed, they would just look like rivets. And I thought that would give a bit of extra sort of depth and texture. So this is sort of where we look at, where we're at the moment. I've put in some wires, the filament, some odd bits of offcuts of prints that I had. I used the printer a lot on this project. I really think you can make this without a 3D printer. You could make this with card, presumably lots of other methods. I don't think you have to have a 3D printer in order to make it. Now here's the bit where I was trying then to get the tracks to look a bit thicker. They look a little bit disconnected, the feet of the tracks. So I got this extra wide decorator's tape, carefully taped all the way around, as carefully as I could, and I wanted to push it in so it didn't look flat, so it had indentations between each of the things, and then just cutting off those, so just so the tracks looked a little bit more linked up, like they do on the actual real life sandcrawler. First spray coat of this rust colour just all over, and hang about, what's this? I know it's the tube thing that they use to scavenge. So I made that in Onshape. Again, I'll add that, and anyone, you can have that for free if you want it. I'll put it in the put links. And then with black spray, just starting to make some shadow just in the bits that would have them. So spraying up into the model, starting at the top there, just gently layering it in. And once I'd been around a few times with that, it looked a bit like this. And at this point, I thought it would be a good idea to throw some coffee grinds at it. I'll show you how this turned out at the end. But I started to flick and drop bits, and I wanted to make it look a bit like rust and chipping, but also for it to have a bit of a dirty vibe. So I just chucked all this stuff at it. Seen someone using salt flakes to make rust. So you put the salt flakes on, you paint over the top, and then when you take the flakes away, the under rust color comes out and it looks like chipping, which is really cool. But I thought salt flakes would be wrong scale, so I just had a feeling coffee grinds might be the thing. Here then I've just colored everything with this lighter spray, Sandari dust, and then I thought, well, I want the overhang, like in the actual film prop, they made it up to this height. So in Tunisia, if I jump back and show you the picture that almost started a war because neighbors thought it was a military thing, that's how much they built. So I thought, I'll go the same height. If it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. So I sprayed it black and rust just to give it sort of a deep uniform color. Sit in the background. This is where we are. I then put it on a card base because I cut the card base to shape a shelf where I wanted it to go. And here's some sculptor mold. So 2 parts sculptor mold, 1 part water. Really easy to work with. It's really cool stuff, actually. A bit like throwing porridge around. Not that I've been throwing porridge around, to be honest. Now, I know in the film the ground was super flat, but I think that's because the more they had to move the droids around rather than an artistic choice. So I've decided to make mine a bit more bumpy and lumpy, which is what I'm doing with the sculptor mold. So just sort of moving this sculptor mold around to make some mounds. And then I've added some anti-mold grout mixed with some sand, basically. So different types of sand. I've got some coral sand and some white sand, both from a tropical fish shop. Just seemed to be the easiest place to get it from. Mix it up roughly in equal measure. Big shout out to Kathy Millett. If you haven't checked out her YouTube, it's brilliant. And I picked this technique from her, so thank you to her. Any mistakes that were mine. And now I'm just sort of moving the sand around, so I'm happy with how it looks. Making some indentations, looks like it's been moved around on. A few tracks from the droids have been dragging themselves around. And I think I actually got a Jawa, and here he is, yeah, and made a few footprints here and there as well. And then a bit more texture. So again, it's aquariums, gravel, pebbles. Just chuck some bits and pieces of that in. and moved that around. And again, covered it over then with some of this tile grout, just a sprinkling of that over the top. And now, once I was happy with the shape and the footprints and so on, try and set it. So first of all, isopropyl, you could see it there. I'll put it in the link what it is. Some sort of alcohol mix. It smelled so bad. My whole house smelled like a dentist's. And a scary dentist as well, not like a nice dentist. So I'd recommend doing that outside. My wife would also recommend doing that outside in future. Then over the top of that, putting a mix of PVA glue and water, and that just sort of seals it all together. I used quite a lot here. And then over the top, because it was still quite wet, I added in some extra bits of the grout, the tile grout, just give it that sandy vibe. And then I wanted it to go right up to the backdrop. So I put some cling film or saran wrap, if you're in North America perhaps, against the backdrop so it wouldn't spoil the card and paint that I'd made. And then just sort of blending the sandcrawler into its environment a little bit so it didn't just like it's been plonked down. And mainly that was with tile grout and sand. And then I thought, yeah, keep going with the tile grout, Marcus. Just throw it around a bit. Yeah, blend it in. And then I got carried away. And now it just looks like there's been a fight on the Great British Bake Off. So, well, as Bob Ross says, there's no mistakes, only happy little accidents that then take several hours to fix. So it took me ages to sort of undo half of this work. But, you live and learn. Again, just blending in, then spraying it down with some PVA glue to try and sort of settle what I've done in. And here there was a join that goes over the wheel, and I really just wanted to sort of hide that join a little bit, which is also due to the placement of the pieces above it. I was really just trying to hide the join with that control panel-y thing. It's just a bit of scrap print that I had around. So there I'm just blending in some sculptor mold and just sort of hiding the join with a bit of muck, basically. It looks like they've had a plumbing problem on the sandcrawler. And because I didn't learn the lesson first time, throwing more grout around. Idiot. And then blending the stairs in with some sculptor mold so that they look like they're a bit weathered and they've got sort of sand blown up on them and so on. But I overdid it like I did with everything else. And then basically had to go and spray over it again. So my wife was obviously out at this point because I did some spraying in the house. It stinks. Spray outside with a mask. And then I'm into some weathering. I tried to use some enamel weathering for the first time. I've not used it before, and it was good. Yeah, I liked it. A bit harder to work with probably than water-based. But yeah, I liked it. Streaking grime, I think it was. So that's kind of cool and fun to play with a different texture. Here I'm just trying to age it up, trying to give shadow where there should be shadow, and still trying to find some consistency. I found the answer to the whole thing was just working, yeah, sure, make some, bits where things have leaked or whatever and put shadows in, that's fine. But then to sort of blend it in and get rid of this ridiculous bit where I just threw some flour around, tile grout, not really flour, that just putting washes. So here I'm just putting an acrylic wash, acrylic and water, just darkening it down. And then when it got too dark and brown, I added back in some rust colour, some Vallejo Air Rust, which is just what I happen to have, mixed with water. And then I thought, oh yeah, let's get fancy. So here, just making a bit of damage with the drill, any old drill bit really. I'm using a star head. And then with some pastels, just scraping off, and then dropping it on with a brush and pushing it out to the side. So it's a bit like a star figure. So I looked at some blaster marks, some damage marks. I thought maybe these Jawas not have run up against stormtroopers, but they've been in a few disputes. So black and then a little bit of silver where the metal has been exposed, and whoop, there's another one of those Bob Ross happy accidents. It's going to take another 45 minutes to repair. So again, just flicking that pastel around for the star-shaped, bit of silver, bit of rust, reassemble everything, And that's pretty much it. I'm exhausted just re-watching those clips. Let me know what you thought. Was it worth it after all? Here's the coffee grind effect that I was using, you know, for the rust. So in there you can see when you've brushed the coffee grind off, and here you can see it leaves that sort of speckled, chipped kind of effect, which I think is kind of cool. So coffee grinds in this case, or salt maybe, is perhaps the better thing to use, but I'm pleased with how that went. This one, I printed out too many pieces, and so I was using this mainly as a test piece, and I thought, oh, perhaps I'll at one point move it to a bigger shelf and maybe have the extra piece. You can see here though, here's the extra. So I printed originally this depth, and then I thought I wanted it to look a bit deeper, a bit chunkier. So I then went back to the cut print that I made and reprinted this second edge, so you can see that quite clearly there. Let's jump over. I'll sort of talk you through, if you're interested. If you're not interested, switch off while you're watching. It's up to you. You don't have to be here. We'll talk you through what's over here. Here we are on the shelves, which are kind of work in progress, but let's get in there. Start on the left. I know there's going to be some complaints. I know that this guy's not canon. Well, he is canon. Obviously, he's from Kenobi. I think it's reasonable timeline-wise that this model of droid should have been picked up by the Jawas. So I changed some colours and moved him around a little bit with his paint job. And I like him. I really like that particular droid. Here's where I covered over the seam with the gunk, the miscellaneous gunk. The gemstones that hopefully look a bit like rivets. Just give it a bit more depth. I'm lighting it just temporarily from above at the moment, but these two guys, I really enjoyed these little side project, the Treadwell and the other one. One of these was free. They're 3D prints, and I printed them on filament, so they're not resin, but they came out really well with minimal sort of sanding or anything. If you're interested, maybe I'll do a video on the make of those. But there's some wires there. These are jewellery wires from Hobbycraft, which were about £1 for 15, really handy. And you can see a bit of the texture of the floor there. This piece definitely isn't canon. It's from Buzz Lightyear. So on the Spacer, Cantina Spacer build that I did recently, I used a Buzz Lightyear helmet, and this was left over. It came with the figure, and I thought, oh, that's the sort of thing that a Jawa might pick up and use somewhere. So a bit of miscellaneous stuff for the Jawa. Oh, teeny to you, sir. So yeah, I'm kind of pleased with it overall. It's by far the biggest project I've tackled, sort of accidentally, and yeah, looks all right. So let me know, what do you think? Would you have a go at it? Has anyone done it already? Let me know. If you haven't already, please subscribe. It's really encouraging to see people comment and like and subscribe. So thank you for doing that, and look forward to chatting in the comments soon. All right, take care. Get us out of here!